Good day. I hope you are fine and safe. Today we are about to share the knowledge about teaching. I know that all of us here are motivated in one way or another, for we are going to embark in teaching in the higher education institution. Maybe most of us are already teachers, and some are already experts in their line of specialization. My topic for today is about principles of teaching and teaching methodologies. As teachers, it is imperative that we know the principles of teaching and teaching methodologies, and on how to organize our class in terms of all the processes that requires communication and interaction. These are the objectives of today's activity. Write 5 instructional objectives for a lesson. Relate one's teaching procedure to a theoretical perspective and evaluate the constructive alignment of the teaching processes in a sample syllabus. To start with, let us define what is teaching. Teaching is composed of learning activities that are planned and organized, following a step-by-step procedure and directed to the pursuance of a desired learning goal. From the definition of teaching, we can see several important concepts, such as learning activities, planned and organized, following a step-by-step procedure, and a learning goal. We can see from the illustration the different activities a teacher is typically doing related to their obligations or main designation and in the performance of teaching. In this diagram, we can see the connection of great teaching and effective learning. We can see there the hands-on experiential learning, the modern technologies, the theory, critical thinking, and big ideas are contributing factors to be able to have that great teaching and effective learning. In addition, the delivery of the content, the type of assessment and activities given by the teachers, and the teacher's personality also contribute to great teaching and effective learning. This diagram of teaching shows the interconnectedness of each dimension and how an ongoing evaluation is happening in the entire teaching process. If I may start interpreting this diagram, I will start the question, what do I want my students to learn? This part necessitates an action of making a plan or making preparation. Another question, how my students get there, necessitates developing learning activities that will enhance my students' competency as set in the learning plan. There is always an immediate assessment or evaluation of examining the alignment of these learning activities to the plan competency set. How do I know when my students get there? Is a question that necessitates the use of assessment techniques and tools. The determination of validity of the assessment done in the evaluation part. Where are my students now? This question is based on the result of evaluation and the basis of teachers' informed decision, which could influence future instructional plan. Now let us use this diagram of a teaching process and how we visualize teaching following its procedure. Let us look at this definition of teaching as given by Salandanan in her book published in 2012. And let us use the evaluation approach of Benjamin Bloom as combined with the idea of the constructive alignment by John Biggs, wherein there is a marriage of constructivist understanding of the nature of learning and an aligned design of an outcome-based teaching. So basically, it starts with formulating instructional objectives, to be followed by creating learning experiences, and then evaluating the changed behavior of the students in terms of their knowledge, skills, and attitude. The KSA are the three types of domains which constitute for the holistic development of learners: knowledge as the cognitive domain, skills as the psychomotor domain, and attitudes as the affective domain. These are usually set as the learning targets for any teaching and learning process. It is important to determine the set objective and the learned competencies in developing or implementing these learning activities and the appropriateness of the evaluation technique that is used in measuring these competencies, which at the very beginning are set in the formulating of instructional objectives. This entire process is what we call the constructive alignment. The final step is an evaluation of the whole teaching process, results of which will be used by the teacher as a basis for an informed instructional decisions of what to do for the next lesson. As we have seen, the processes involved in teaching, it always starts with formulating instructional objective. What is an objective? An objective is a statement that indicates a purpose, an aim, or goal set for any undertaking. In teaching, an objective identifies the purpose a teacher plans to pursue. It is termed educational objective or instructional objective when used in teaching. Instructional objectives are detailed description of what students will be able to do at the end of the learning activity. There are rules to be followed as guide in writing instructional objectives. An instructional objective is also important because it helps us facilitate the following: identification of what the students are expected to perform or to demonstrate. Hence, it's answer the question what the student will be able to do after the learning activity. It is also used as basis for planning and organizing learning activities. What teaching methods should be used by the teacher that will develop students' learning competency? And the choice of appropriate learning materials and equipment and tools, answerable by what resources will be needed for the learning activity. It, it is also used as basis for decision in choosing appropriate evaluation technique. How the learning performance will be evaluated. Is the evaluation aligned with the objectives? There are rules to be followed, as I mentioned a while ago, in writing instructional objective. The first rule: instructional objective must describe the observable behavior. Observable behavior is the expected performance from the students, a manifestation of learning. The observable behavior must be described using behavioral terms or outcome verbs. Outcome verb is used to manifest the knowledge and understanding through a demonstrated behavior of the learners, because any change in the learner's behavior is an evidence of learning. In this example, we have three instructional objectives. Name at least 4 government officials who participated in the first EDSA revolution. The other one is know the different parts of a desktop computer and understand the stages of psychosocial theory of Erik Erikson. We can see the highlighted words here. These are the outcome verbs: name, know, and understand. When the students name, at least for government official, it is an observable behavior. But the term know and understand is hard to manifest. The instructional objective describes the criterion for evaluating an acceptable performance of the behavior. Criterion is an important part of instructional objective statement because it is used to evaluate whether a student's performance is acceptable or not. If this criterion is not met by the students, we can say that he or she did not attain the objective set. The examples given here, the criterion must be at least 4. Students must be able to name at least 4 government officials. And the second example is the students must be able to make connections using knowledge on current literature. So, if the students will not met that criterion, then therefore the objective is likewise not met. A good instructional objectives also specify important condition under which the student will perform the behavior. So, setting important conditions provide clear boundaries and limitation, hence making the instructional objective specific. So we have here important conditions provided in the examples. Government officials who participated in the first EDSA revolution. And the other important conditions in the second example is suited to learners' needs. We could also use the using knowledge current literature between biologically developmental theories and developmentally appropriate teaching approaches. It is also important to measure only one outcome verb for each objective statement. Though there are a lot of instructional objectives written in this way, but our practice and also based on the principle of teaching, which states that any complex knowledge must be presented from simple to increasing complexity. So in order to facilitate this principle, we need to unpack this type of writing instructional objectives. Therefore, one outcome verb for every instructional objective statement. Another point for considering the level of cognitive thinking we expect from our students to be performed, we need to organize the objective. If we have 2 or more objectives, we have to organize in such a way that it starts from the lower thinking skills, gradually transitioning to the higher order thinking skills. Look at the given example in the slide. We can see the lesson for the class, as well as the type of cognitive thinking process we expect our students to be performed. We have to compare, explain, and define. If we are going to look at the outcome verbs, the simplest or the lowest demand of cognitive thinking process is the outcome verb define. And the going to more in going to more complex thinking skills, the explain and compare. So we should arrange our objective in this way. We have to start from the simplest thinking process requirement, that is identify, followed by differentiate, and then appraise. But how can I determine the levels of cognitive thinking process? We can determine it by simply using the Bloom's taxonomy for instructional objectives. Bloom's taxonomy consists of 6 levels within the cognitive domain, from simple recall or recognition of facts as the lowest domain or as the lowest level, to the highest order, which is classified as create. Each level is conceptually different. The Bloom's taxonomy is very important for educators and those that are involved in planning because you can easily determine the outcome verbs, their corresponding requirement for the level of cognitive thinking process, and also it is helpful for us to decide on what evaluation technique will be used for measuring such learning outcomes. In the table here, we can see the sample terms or the outcome verbs compare, explain, and define. And we can see the demand for cognitive level thinking process from our students as analyze, understand, and remember. If it is the way we arrange our objective, then it shows here that the thinking process is gradually regressing, or they start from the higher order thinking skills going to the lower order thinking skills. If we arrange in proper sequence, the behavioral terms must be in this pattern. We have the remember as the level of cognitive thinking process, followed by understand and analyze. In terms, in outcome verb, we have the define, explain, and compare. There is another classification of thinking in which clearly describes the levels of complexity in the learner's understanding of subject. It provides level of understanding the subject, which aids as well the teacher and the learners of their learning progress. This is the Solo taxonomy. It is developed by John Biggs. The Solo means structure of the observed learning outcomes. He believes that as learning progresses, it becomes more complex. It is composed of levels such as pre-structural, unistructural, multi-structural, relational, and extended abstract. For the pre-structural, we can see there that that is described as being incompetence, wherein the students do not understand or fail or misses the point, not train. This is the stage wherein the students have no prior knowledge or schema about the lesson that we are about to present to them. So they are in the level of pre-structural. The unistructural is described here as one independent abstract, wherein the students can comprehend, can follow a procedure, can give an example, can can identify, and can infer based on one independent abstract. And we have the next level, the multi-structural, wherein it uses several relevant independent aspects. Like they will able to combine, they will able to describe, and they will able to differentiate, to list, to sort, to clarify, to classify the relevant independent examples. The next level is relational understanding. This is described as the integrated into a structure. So the students here will be able to analyze, to apply, to combine, to compare and explain causes. We can see in this level that the students the students' level of understanding will capacitate them to form, to integrate it into a framework in order for them to apply the learned concept, or to combine learned concepts in order to be integrated into a certain structure. And then we have the next level, we have the extended abstract, wherein the level of understanding is going to generalize to a new domain. The learners now will be able to build, to create, or to design, or to devise and reflect out of the learning experiences. The terms here, the outcome verbs, we have the define, and if you're going to look at the level of cognitive process and or the level of complexity of understanding, define is unistructural. Example is, what is the definition of teaching? And then The explain term there is still a unistructural. If I use my own words in order to define what teaching is, that is unistructural. If I am going to compare teaching to other profession, determining its similarities, then I have the understanding of relational understanding. Then, how good a instructional objective or how a good instructional objective looks like. We have an example here, demonstrate understanding in writing a syllabus. That is the example objective. The question here is the objective clear? Is the objective well-defined and unambiguous? Is it focused on one key outcome? How can you measure the demonstration of understanding? I think it is better if we write the objective this way. The demonstrate understanding in writing a syllabus will be converted to the use of different outcome verbs like explain, process of writing a syllabus, write a syllabus, evaluate components of a syllabus, propose a syllabus for a certain course, and develop a syllabus with complete parts. So those are better instructional objectives. Now the questions here, how can you measure the demonstration of understanding now that you are using different outcome verbs? Is the objective clear? Is the objective well defined? Is it now focused on one key outcomes? Another example for instructional objective, write a syllabus for a course. So is it clear? Is it well defined? Does it tell the limit of the demonstration of understanding? I think the question here is, what course? Another example, the course there has been substituted now by a specific course, the Child and Adolescent Learners and Learning Principles. So now, is the objective clear? Is it well defined? Does it tell the limit of the demonstration of understanding? That is a characteristic known as specific. So in this example, write a syllabus for a professional subject. How can you measure the demonstration of understanding now? We can measure it when our students able to write a syllabus. Then that's how the observable behavior is manifest. Hence, we can easily measure it. Now look at the sample objective. Is the objective realistic and achievable for the students? Is the objective of the lesson well communicated to the learners? Does the objective consider the learner's context? If your answer to all this question is yes, then your syllabus has the characteristic of being attainable. If the questions are the resources needed to attain the objective available, or does the objective as well consider the learner's context? That will make your instructional objective resourced. Another characteristic is this, is the objective can be achieved within a certain time frame. If your answer is yes, then your objective is time bound. But if within 45-minute session, the students will not be able to write a syllabus, then the implication of this is you need to revise your syllabus, making sure that this complex activity will be presented using units, and units will be in proper sequence. Now, those are the characteristics of a good instructional objective. the acronym SMART, which means specific, measurable, attainable, resourced, and time-bound. Now, let us look once more on this example. At the end of a 60-minute discussion, the students will be able to, is this objective SMART? Is this objective has the component of a good instructional objective statement, the observable behavior, the criterion, the important condition? What specific characteristic can you relate to this statement? At the end of a 60-minute discussion, the students will be able to, from the characteristics included in the SMART, which of this relates to these phrases? Now, let us look at the sample objectives here in this slide. There are 3 instructional objectives written here. Now, my question is, are the objectives SMART? Specific, measurable, attainable, resourced, and time-bound? Do they have the components of a description of observable behavior, the criterion for evaluating an acceptable performance, the other important conditions that sets limitation to make our objective more specific? Are they arranged in proper sequence, from simple to more complex requirement of thinking processes? Now, how do I create my learning activities? First of all, we need to look at our instructional objective in order to determine the possible learning activity. In this example, the instructional objective is explain the process of writing a syllabus in child and adolescent learner and the learning principles using a graphic organizer. So upon knowing that, we could easily think of an activity that will necessitate students' engagement in a discussion wherein the skills and explaining will be developed, or it could be in reporting. Let us look how this activity will be evaluated, or how the learning performance will be evaluated. The objective, it uses the outcome verb explain, and in the learning activity, the discussion method in reporting can be characterized by the activity which the learners will engage into explaining. And in the evaluation, it is expected that they will do some kind of performance task in order to apply the learned concept. The presentation of the process of writing a syllabus using graphic organizer could also be done using a rubric in order to convert the performance into numerical grade. Can I use pen and paper test or written test? If you are the teacher and you are the knowledgeable one on the purpose of your objective, you want them to explain the process of writing a syllabus, which could also be done by pen and paper test. However, we need your professional judgment as to the alignment and to the justification of your objectives explained, which also involve in the discussion method as the learning activity. It is expected that even in the evaluation, the performance task will be used as measure of their learning acquisition of the desired objective. This is to ensure that there is a constructive alignment. As the teacher of the subject, you could also use a variety of evaluation technique. Now, I want you to look at the constructive alignment once more, because we will be going to evaluate the parts of a sample syllabus if they are constructively aligned. Let us look at the objective. The objective of this particular syllabus, at the end of the unit, the pre-service teacher can, so we can see the time-bound characteristic of the objective, discuss, so it uses an outcome verb, the concepts and theories, so this is the criterion related to biological physical development of children and adolescents. So these are the important conditions given. So what is the possible learning activity for this type of objective? We have the interactive instruction and facilitated discussion. So we can see here the term, the frequency of the term used, the outcome verb discuss, and the how the learning activity has been characterized by discussion activity. Hence, we can infer from the objective to learning activity, they are aligned. And how this learning activity, how this objective through learning activity can be evaluated. So the pre-service teachers will be using concept maps in small groups, illustrate the mental connections they make between major concepts and other concepts they have learned about a topic. Other organizers may be used whenever appropriate. So the expected output, the concept map will be presented and used to discuss the research-based concepts and theories. Again, we can see the frequency of the word discuss. It characterizes as well the type of evaluation technique to be used by the teacher. So from this structure of the parts, we can safely say that the parts are constructively aligned. Now, for your activity, you're going to write 5 instructional objectives for the topic of your choice. Evaluate the constructive alignment of the parts of sample syllabi, which I provided for your activity in this part. Thank you very much.